is your name today. So, welcome everybody for coming tonight, and thank you to you and to the city of Wilder for allowing us to use the facility. Richard, you want to come up and read the minutes from last month?
On December 14th, we met here on Broadway at 7 o'clock for our holiday social. Steve introduced the meeting and thanked the city, and thanked Glenn and Kathy for their decorations, for the wonderful decorations. I read the minutes from the previous meeting. Glenn reported an ending balance in the treasury of $9,047.61. Jan reported 319 members at the time, but dues for the next year are due January 1st. Jan reported the newsletter would mail right after Christmas, and it would contain membership renewal information as well. Newsletters from other organizations we do get sometimes and keep in our collection. She pointed that out in case people want to check out what other groups are doing. Kentucky Life and the Neighbors of Alexandria, public libraries, there's all kinds of local newsletters and magazines we get. She also asked for submission for the Neighbors of Alexandria magazine, which we put an entry in every month, as well as the newsletter. And December 21st, she was going to prepare the newsletter for mailing. We also have technology sponsors of the month. We're always looking for more sponsors as well. Peak Heating and Air is one of our valuable sponsors, and they were in attendance, and we certainly thank them for their sponsorship over the years. Sure, Steve announced at the essay contest, there are new flyers for it as the contest has started now. Veteran files are now up to 14,984 total. Also, the big news is the reprinted of volumes 1 and 2, Pieces of the Past, is now here and available for sale. We've been working on that for about a year, so it was good to get that taken care of. Steve described the phenomenal Christmas tree display with 51 trees this year, more than double from the previous year, and just how wonderful it looked, especially if you got up and walked through it. It was phenomenal, and thank Mark and Deanna and everybody who worked on that. It turned out great. Campbell Media had video dividing, and it was on the display for our year-end show on a screen with about 200 people at the tree lighting at the end of November. Obviously a great success. Paul Whelan discussed wreaths across America that took place December 16th at Evergreen, 9 o'clock in the morning. They were gathering for the ceremony and to place the wreaths. Steve announced that NKU had begun their dig at the site of the new Fort Barracks. And there was a recent article about tourism numbers in Northern Kentucky and how much money tourism brings in. We certainly want to be a part of that. He also announced future meetings would be coming up. Still working on January and February. March will be Captain Don Sanders of the Delta Crane captain. April will be the E.O. Robinson House and the man himself. And May will be on Ralph Stoley, the local inventor, with June being our picnic, and then July being Snyder's Sweet Shop. Easy for me to say. That's a good speaker. Anyway, History Day will be May 4th. It's explained in the newsletter. Unfortunately, it's Derby Day, but it'll be done before all the big partying starts and before the race. And that was it from last month. And just the other announcement, History Day, May 4th. So.
With $9,047.61. We had 11 renewals and one lifetime member added. We had $600 worth of donations for the essay contest, which was stellar. $211 in publications. Kroger Rewards got us $122.59. Two technology sponsors renewed, and we collected about $13 in sales tax, so our income was $1,329.45. Expense-wise, we bought shipping labels, and we bought map storage tubes, piles and piles of map storage tubes. Paid the lease payment for the copier, and paid part of the sign bill for the Christmas trees, and renewed our computer software. So our expenses were $1,208.32. So we closed with $9,168.76. $0.74.
Very good. Thank you, Glenn. Jan?
Okay, membership currently is at 137, plus a whole stack of new renewals that I haven't had time to put in because Glenn just gave them to me. So we're doing good. Renewal information was in the newsletter, so please get that back to us as soon as you can. We've also had a couple new life members, so that's a good thing. There is one interesting communication we got recently. The Palatines to America German Genealogy Group is having a free online webinar about researching your revolutionary roots. And I assume it'll have to do with those ancestors who are of German descent and who may have been in the Revolution. The presenter is Shelley Bishop, and she's a genealogy researcher and a writer. So it should be pretty good. All you have to do is register for it. The website is up here. You can copy this down if you like later on. I'll leave it here. And the next issue of the newsletter is due out in May. And anybody who has an article to submit can get it to me by about the 1st of April.
I don't have anything to report about the essay contest yet, because they're not due till next month. But for the veterans report, we had 38 veterans added to our collection last month. 19 of them came from Alexandria Cemetery, which is the work of Patty and Marcia, as I told you before. Brings the total to 15,022. Yeah, it won't be long, we're going to get 20,000. We need more books.
Like you said, we had 51 trees, so we ended up profiting between $1,500 and $1,600 for this year.
Job well done. Thank you so much. And it's a little premature, but I think we may have a second location in addition to Alexandria for next year. We still have to put that all together, but we're trying to find somebody up north that can do this so that those people can participate as well. So we'll keep you posted on what happens there. One little sad piece of information. Everybody remember the Showboat Majestic?
Yes.
The guy who owns it is allowing it to deteriorate, and he's got, I think, 3 different federal agencies that are after him now. He's got it docked in Maysville without a permit. It's a darn shame.
It is, but when he got that, we know him, he had such plans.
Oh yeah, I know the guy.
Yeah.
He had big plans for it, and apparently they have all gone awry. And one of the bigger problems is that when the city of Cincinnati owned the Showboat before him, they got money from the Historic Preservation Trust of $150,000 with the contingency that they would keep it open at least 10 days a year for the public to come. It's not in any shape for the public to come in now. And so I don't know if they're going to try to go back and get that I don't know where that's going to wind up, but they're after him. The Corps of Engineers is after him. He's just got big problems, and I don't know what the end result of it's going to be. It's a shame.
It is.
Okay. I think I explained or sensed last month that we're having some real difficulty getting people for January and February. That continued. People are willing to come and do presentations, but they want to be later in the month. So, tonight, you get us. we put our noggins together and said, okay, so what can we do to do a meeting? And Ken came up with the idea, he said, you know, everybody has something that is of interest to them, that's a hobby to them, something that everybody should know about. And so we made this a two-part meeting. Tonight, we've asked the board members to come up and tell you a little bit about themselves and what their little thing is. Next month, we're going to turn it over to you, and we want to hear from you about those things that are interesting to you. Because if they're interesting to you, you know what? They're going to be interesting to somebody else. So I'm going to turn this over to any one of the board members that wants to go first. And watch, they'll all sit here now and say, ooh, not me, not me.
I'll go.
Okay. This is Jan Lester.
Okay, I think most of you here know that my main interest is in genealogy. So I'll give you a little background on how I started in that. I'm Campbell County born and raised in Fort Thomas. Even as a child, I was interested in my family history, and I tried to make a family tree just on a piece of paper. And my mom was helping me, but she's got a lot of Ryans and Rileys that kind of crisscross all over the place in her family. And I got confused really fast, and I just pretty much gave up. So a teaching career in special ed, a marriage, and 2 children later, I got interested again in tracing my roots when my husband Jeff introduced me to the possibilities that existed on the internet. It was kind of a new thing, the internet, and it was kind of interesting and fun. So then I took a community ed class, and I learned more, and how to do genealogy properly, like starting where you are and going backwards, not starting back and trying to come forwards, because that can really mess you up. Both sides of my family converged here in Campbell County, so I soon wound up at the research library at the Historical Society, and I've kind of never left. Along the way, I started assisting other people with their searches, and I built a side business called Genealogy by Jan. In addition to researching, I found a decorative way to display my family trees, and I used calligraphy to create fan charts. And I'll show you. Oh, okay, you might use one.
I'm an easel.
That's what I do. I don't create the chart itself. I do the calligraphy work to fill in the blank spaces. And I started doing it just for my family, and now as well I do it for clients who would like to have one done for their family. Most recently, I traced one of my lines back to a Revolutionary War patriot, Captain Martin Hoagland, and I'm now a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. He would be on this line right here, but this is only 6 generations, and he is the 7th generation on my line. So it was kind of a lot of hard research, not only by me, but by the registrar at our local DAR chapter, who did a lot of the work with me, and we finally got them to believe everything that we said. Yeah, sure, you can put it on. Some of my other interests include golf, which I took up mainly because we live across the street from Pendleton Country Club. But after about 30 years, I'm still learning the game. I tell people that Jeff's the golfer and I'm the duffer. We love traveling, especially we like visiting national parks and places where our ancestors lived. We try to combine golf and exploring natural and historic and ancestral locations when we do travel. And our latest trip was to Ireland, And we got to do all of the things that we love to do. We golfed and we visited ancestral sites and the natural wonders of Ireland.
I was born at Spears Hospital. I was delivered by Dr. Howe. I grew up in Kentucky, and they're all wrong. Brent, I don't know if anybody knows, if you all know where Brent is, it's down next to the Ohio River. Okay, I live best by the river and by Brent, because we knew the bridge was coming and we moved, and I didn't know that it was going to take the whole area up, you know, so. Brent reached its heyday in the early 1890s. Although never incorporated, it had a band, it had a baseball team, it had a hunting and fishing club called the Phoenix Grove. The Island Queen 1 and 2 could be seen dropping off passengers at Coney Island across the river. Harlan Hubbard built his shanty boat there alongside of my grandfather's towboat. My father and grandfather worked as night watchmen at Coney Island. They rowed our John boat to work. My mother worked there too, and she met my dad and married him in 1929. When I was 10, my dad taught me to read road maps. He allowed me to navigate us to Florida and back, but I only made one mistake. That's when I became obsessed with maps. And a couple of years ago, I volunteered to organize, seems like 5 minutes, I volunteered to organize the Society's maps. It's a way bigger project than I had any idea. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about what kind of maps we have out here. We have aerial photos of Campbell County in the range of 1954, 57. They're very interesting to look at, to see how it used to be before other roads tore it up. We have city street maps, we have state road maps, we have the historic maps, we have commercial maps that people make. How should I describe this? Like banks will put out a thing and it'll have different, promotion, yes, that's the word. Okay, we have 1883 Atlas, and we have Sanborn maps that, those were used to create fire insurance assessments. And they're really detailed. We got 2 books of those. We have contour maps from the USGS, United States Geological Study, from Society, from late 70s and early 80s. We currently have blueprints from KDOT, construction plans for various roads like 27 and Kentucky 8. These were from like in the 20s all the way up to the 60s. And they're random roads, and people's property names are on there. It's kind of interesting to see how the road used to be before the road is the way it is now. Recently, and those blueprints are rolls. So we ordered a bunch of tubes, and I'm working on the index for them now. They'll be in those tubes, so you can go to the index and find out what you need. Recently, we received 6 boxes of photos of homes which were torn down for I-275, I-471, and various other projects. I'm currently setting up an index for those. So, if you're interested, if you're a map person, or you're just interested in seeing our collection, come and see me at the office. I'm usually there on Tuesdays from 2 to 5. That's me.
You look like you're ready to go get some steel or something.
I have a t-shirt on, I'm a t-shirt person. Oh, excuse me. I better use the mic. I'm a t-shirt person. There's something significant about this t-shirt. It's red. I like red. It's got 1950 on it. That's the year I was born. And it's got this woman on we recognize as Rosie the Riveter. I went to school and got an associate's degree at the College of Technology in welding. Now, you might think I'm dressed up for Halloween, but that's not the case. I came to Cincinnati, and I was accepted in the apprenticeship program for Local 392, and I went through that program, and I worked through them. I'm still a member for 30 years. I've worked all over Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. It was a great job. I learned a lot of things. I met a lot of cool people. I had some interesting adventures, some not so interesting, and some dangerous places that we worked. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed working outside in construction. I learned a lot of things, not just about being a pipe fitter and a welder, but I learned other parts of the craft too. Now, what does that got to do with the historical site? Nothing, because they won't let me do anything up there. I could just really get into this. But before the internet, I got interested in updating my family tree. And then the internet come along, and then I thought, well, I'll just get on Kentucky's Campbell County site, and I'll do that. So I did. I've been part of that, the Campbell County, Kentucky Gym website since 1993, about the time it came out. So you're talking, how many years is that? I don't know, I can't count anymore. And that's what fueled my interest in Campbell County, making sure that there were, records, birth, marriage, death. I have transcribers that come up. Ken, in his gracious insight, wisdom, asked me to be a board member in 2005, and he can't get rid of me because I'm still here, and he's already retired. So here I am, watching everybody retire and leave or die. And they have done that. So I'm still here as long as I can function, Got several projects going on right now at the Historical Society that I have, hopefully that people will see a great interest in, not just the Veterans Collection. But I've enjoyed being on the board. We've had our moments, didn't we? Ken and I never had any moments, but others of us did. That's kind of me in a nutshell, I have a daughter and 3 grandchildren. They don't live close, so, I have a big place where I have lots of garden, flowers. I do a lot of that in the summertime. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
All about going back to college.
Oh yeah, forgot to tell you that part.
Detail.
A little small detail. I went back to Northern Kentucky University and pulled all my credits there and graduated with a bachelor's in history in 2018. And then I have finished a master's degree last month in public history. It's all part of, it's all part of it. And I'll be applying for the PhD program at the University of Kentucky a little bit later this month. So we'll see how that goes. And you'll have to call me doctor. And if you don't, I'll make sure you do. Yes, I was in the first class of women through the pipe fitters. And this is when they were first taking women into the local. There were 60 women in that class. There was 5 of us who finished.
Wow.
Because of, some of it was women who didn't know what they were getting into. One of them said, oh, it's dirty, I don't want to get dirty. Well, I gotta wear these clothes? No, I'm not gonna do that. Some of it was harassment, some of it was some other things, but 5 of us made it through that apprenticeship program. And I wasn't the first one to retire. I think there was a couple of other women before me, but that's okay. There's lots of women now in it, and they come and go, and nobody thinks anything of it, so it's good.
also run the treasurer, and I had this really nifty PowerPoint presentation already for you. But I didn't bring the computer or the projector, so we'll wing it. Okay, I was from Northern Kentucky, South Newport specifically, Spaghetti Knob, has other names, but I grew up there. Pam Casebolt, our former vice president, grew up there, and I knew her from way back, whatever. Went to St. Vincent up on the hill, and ultimately to Newport Catholic, the high school. And after high school, I went to NKU for a couple of years, and then ended up at a technical college in electronics. I ended up at Heathkit Electronics for my first electronics job. Used to be out in Springdale, and was a bench tech there for a couple of years when one of my former teachers from the college called me and said, "How would you like to teach?" And I'm going, "I never thought about it." But since I was driving out there and it was 40 minutes a day, one way, whatever, I thought, I'd probably like to try it out. So I took a major cut in salary to come back to teach. And I started in 1975, the same month my first daughter was born, my only daughter was born. And started teaching electronics and electronics technology, consumer products repair, physics, that kind of thing. About 1977 rolled around, and we had our son, so I have a son and a daughter, and that was about the same time computers came out, so I got started with computer technology in about 1978, before computers were what most people think computers are. And ended up starting with the world's mini computer seminar in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I got to see a pimply-faced Bill Gates sitting behind one of the display booths in there, complaining about why his program wouldn't run, and working on an ASR 33 teletype, which means nothing to anybody here, so we'll go from there. I have been married for 50 years to my wife, Kathy, actually more than 51 years now. We got married in 72, and she's why I'm here. Okay, she was the genealogy guru in the family, and she decided to start researching, and she was pretty much absent for most of the days in the 70s because you had to do everything at the library in Covington. So when I went to work, she got the kids to school, and she went to Covington and started researching. So she spent a lot of time over there. And then with the advent of computers, she got her a better computer, got her a computer, so she could start working with things at home. My teaching job started at Gateway Community Technical College, and you probably know where it is, and one of its previous incarnations. And I was there for 32 years, and retired full-time from Gateway. Last 7 years I was there, I was on the Gateway Board of Directors as the faculty representative. While I was teaching at Gateway, I worked adjunct with NKU, and I spent 13 years teaching electronics technology to NKU students out of the AS&T building on the campus. Actually started in the old science building before they built the new science building, and then they built the applied science and technology building. So had quite a history with them. After I retired, I was sitting on the deck watching the squirrels, drinking iced tea, and the phone rang, and a fellow I knew from Cincinnati State called me and said, "What are you doing? Now that you're retired?" I said, "I'm drinking iced tea and watching the squirrels." I says, with my feet up, and he goes, "I need an electronics teacher." So I spent the next 10 years at Cincinnati State teaching adjunct electronics technology, computer science, and biomedical electronics to students there. And then when my wife retired in 2017, I thought, I'm going to quit this. Okay, so I did. During that whole time, I ran my own company from about 1980 to 2017, when she retired, the name of Elster Electronics, obviously. Okay, and I did a lot of work for various places around town, worked for, had a reasonable customer client base, so I did computers, and I did component level troubleshooting on a lot of electronic components, whatever. And as a teacher, that wasn't a luxury, that was a necessity in order to keep up. Hobbies. Early on, my hobby was, while my wife was trying to do genealogy, collecting photos was a terrible, terrible problem, because people don't want to give up their photos, but you like to have their photos. Okay, so I bought a copy stand, the 35mm camera, and every time we had a meeting with a family reunion, that kind of thing, people would bring their photos and stuff in, and I'd put them in a copy stand, take a picture of them, and let them take them back home. But we got a collection of photos early on, and then later switched to computers. Of course, now we're using the scanner, so she has photos. Last count on her database, since she's been working on it from the late 70s, I think she's close to 16,000 people in her database, and they're all directly related. That's just starting with our parents and going back and whatever. And I don't feign to understand any of it. I just manipulate it. I print it, I take care of it, and make sure it's getting there. Yeah. At the society, I've been involved with the reprint of Camp Springs book. Many of you probably have seen that. I helped Pam Casebolt with her Wadsworth book. If you've seen the Wadsworth book, that's cool. And did a lot of the photographics work. I dabble with Photoshop. And my current endeavor was Pieces of the Past 1 and 2. Okay, and I'm hoping that we got a bunch of 3s and 4s. I don't want to do that again. Okay, it took quite a while. So personal hobbies, I still dabble with electronics and different kinds of circuitry and different kinds of things. And if you ask any of the neighbors, you can sell. I've got lights, I've got things that go automatically. I've got the rooms, the lights come on when you walk in, when you walk out, they go out. You don't have to play with it. Okay. And,
music.
the collection-wise, I've been Star Trek collecting for forever and ever and ever. I have a room full, and I have storage shelves full of Star Trek memorabilia. Because of the electronics and the soldering that goes along with it, stained glass seemed to come naturally, and I do quite a bit of stained glass work, different kinds of panels and sun catchers and those kinds of things. Lately, it's so expensive, I do these special gifts for folks and whatever, but I used to do, back when they used to have the Oktoberfest up in the Devou Park, I used to have a booth up there, and these little sun catchers and stained glass and whatever. That's going way back. I'm also known as the crazy person that does all the decoration in the subdivision. I do Halloween and Christmas and St. Patrick's Day and whatever. I casually said to my son and my grandson, who is now 20, but it's been a few years back, that I'd like to have an antique little cart for display in the yard. And they took it upon themselves and went to my son's shop. He has a farm and a shop down in, about 4 miles north of Falmouth. And he taught my son taught my grandson how to weld, and they made wheels and a carriage and made me an Amish-looking cart that I had a picture of right from the picture, and I used it in the front yard as a fixture. So Valentine's Day, I've got hearts that have little sayings on, okay, and that's where they light up. Everything lights up, okay. I have St. Patrick's Day pot of gold, okay, that lights up also. Easter eggs, giant Easter eggs, full of cards for Easter. And fall time, it's got pumpkins and mums, and Christmas time, it's got Christmas trees and packages in it, and I have a storage room for seasonal that's 20 by 25 foot stacked to the ceiling. And currently, half of it's out into the other room because they have to sort through it. So, when we're not doing that, my wife and I like to travel, and we do Amish country quite a bit, up in eastern Ohio, northeast Ohio, up around Berlin, Millersburg, those kinds of places. So, I think that about covers everything. Other than that,
Well, we'll see if I learned how to talk since I was up here last. Anyway, Richard McCormick, I'm a lifelong Campbell County, I've lived all over the county. Started born in Fort Thomas, but early in life we lived on what we call number 8 and number 10, but of course it's Mary Ingles Highway and Fags Springs Pike, but it's always number 8 and number 10. Went to school at A.J. Jolly, went to high school in Campbell County in Alexandria. And since then I've lived in Newport and Bellevue and Southgate, and now back down in Grant, technically in Grant Stick, but my address says Butler, which is Pendleton County, but physically we're in Campbell County. And my McCormick's pretty much been in Campbell County since about 1840 or so. So I feel like the county's kind of part of me, I'm part of the county. It's just, other than a few years at college in Lexington, I've lived in the county my whole life. So county history's come natural to me. And early in life, my mom showed me a newspaper clipping, and it was a cow or a headstone in a Kentucky Post. He said, oh, that's Gary's cow. Gary is my cousin who's in some land. But the article was about William Francis Corbin and Jefferson McGraw. It was a Jim Reese article on their execution and their story. And that, soon after that, I also found out Abraham Lincoln was a Kentuckian. So since then, I've been kind of a Civil War enthusiast, or whatever you call it. And in recent years, I read books on the war, on battles, and on generals, and whatever subjects I could find. But a couple of years ago, I thought, well, Campbell County had some people in the Civil War too. I figured maybe a few dozen, couple of hundred. But so I started researching Campbell County men in the Civil War, and I've been just blown away. I know there was at least 1,500 men on my spreadsheet now that served for the Union, and I started looking to them. So I haven't even started looking at the Confederate side yet. It's been 3 or 4 years on the Union men. First of all, I was just going to find names and units and the basic stuff, but I found stories. These men died at famous battles. There was a man named Joseph Hager who was from Newport, or German immigrant, lived in Newport, joined the 15th Kentucky in late 1861. January of 1862, his wife gave birth to their son, but October of that year, he died at Perryville. I bet he never saw his son. I mean, that happened to a Campbell County, and like he never saw his son. There was another guy named Charles Gill, who was like 22 years old when he joined war. He got killed in a battle in Virginia. But he was the sole support for his mother and his sister, and then her pension file, they needed money, they were desperate, they were sad. These are Campbell Countyans this happened to, not just people throughout the nation. And I was surprised because you never hear that locally. You don't hear.
And then when I was about 10, for Christmas one year, I got a 9-transistor radio. It's a beautiful piece, all leather, but the greatest thing about it was it had a little earphone. And so every night, click at the 1360 AM WSAI, that earphone goes in, and my mother still did tell the story. Every night she had to go in and turn the radio off because I fell asleep with the radio on with Dusty Rhodes on WSAI. But the sad thing is I learned really early on that I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't play an instrument, I'm totally tone deaf. But I loved all the music. And it's like, so what do I do? Well, when I was about 12, I got my first job. I was a bottle boy at the Pony Keg, 60 cents an hour. I worked 10 hours a week. And so every week I'd get an envelope with a 5 and a 1 in it. I'd get my envelope and I'd head over to Arlen's department store where they had a big record shop. record department in there, and you could buy 45s for like 59 or 69 cents, 79 cents maybe. Albums were a couple of bucks, and I'd start buying records. And so my collection started to grow a little bit, but with $6 a week, it doesn't go very far. Then, after I got out of school, I got my first full-time job, and I managed a Pizza Hut restaurant. This was Pizza Hut when they had the full-service restaurants with the, dining room and they had jukeboxes. Well, Pizza Hut had a contract with Stern Vending back then to manage and take care of the jukeboxes for them. But the selection wasn't all that great, and customers would say, "Can you get some good music on there?" So I probably shouldn't say this, but one of the other managers and I, we'd get in the car and we'd drive over C&D Records over on Monmouth Street, and we'd buy the kind of records that people were looking for. And then we'd go back to the Pizza Hut and we'd break into the back of the jukebox, and we'd change all the records. We had the little cards that went on there, we had it all done. And we had the kind of restaurant, it was really neat, Family dinners lasted till about 7 o'clock then. Well, at 7 o'clock, we moved all the tables out to the perimeter, and we left the center of it open, and we had all these nice young people. A lot of them came from the bowling alley up the street, bowling lanes, or their leagues. They'd come in, and they'd start playing music, and they'd start dancing, and eating pizza, and drinking 3-2 beer, and it was just great fun. And then we knew what days the schedule was for the Stern Vending guy. So we'd go in the night before and we'd switch them all back. And the guy never figured it out. But he did tell us, "I just don't understand." He said, "You have the highest volume jukebox in the whole Stern Vending system." And the poor guy never figured it out, and we never told him. So, and then I got tired of being a restaurant manager, and I told people I got tired of coming home at 2 o'clock in the morning smelling like a French fry. But I still loved food service. So I started on the other side of it, and I started selling food service equipment. And that's where I spent most of my career, was in selling to all the restaurants. And my big thing was I did Skyline Chili's. I did all the equipment and furniture and all the chili platters and all that stuff for probably about 50 Skyline Chili's all across the country. And then the big one I did was the Montgomery Inn Boathouse. And that was not a solo thing. That was a team. That was a huge, huge project. But I remember that story. I had been given the Montgomery Inn account, and they wanted to change something. Everybody know what a ramekin is?
Yeah.
Okay. They wanted to change a ramekin that they were using. So I got them samples and everything, and they said, "That's the one we want. Send us a skid of it," because it all went to a warehouse. So I did. It was a big order, a couple $1,000s. And then Ted Gregory came in, and he said, "I want to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." He said, "You need to take all those ramekins back." I said, "Ted, those were special ordered for you." And he said, "Let me put it to you this way. If you'll take those back, you've got the project for the new boathouse." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay, I'll have to get this cleared, but I think we can do that." And so that's what happened. And so I don't know how long that's been there, back in the 80s, I think. And that was like $2.5 million. That was one of the biggest projects we'd ever done. And not only did we do the equipment, we did all the furniture, we did all the furnishings, the carpet, the draperies, everything that was in there. the Gregory family was just absolutely phenomenal to work with. And I remember the story, we had been having meetings about what they were gonna do, whether they were gonna do this project or not. And so that it was decision time. And they said, okay, we have a meeting next week then, and we'll let you know what we're doing. So we went to this meeting, and Tom Gregory, he opened the meeting, he said, well, he said, we had a family discussion and a family vote. He said, and the vote was 5-1, that we weren't gonna do it. But Dad won. And that's just the way it went. And they did that, they did that boathouse, and it's still an incredible busy restaurant. So anyway, back to the music then. When I got my first car, everybody remember having an 8-track player in your car? Yeah, I had one under the seat or under the driver's seat. I don't know what happened on my 8-track, but those are all gone. But when I was selling all the food service equipment, we did business with a lot of the bars and the little mom and pop restaurants. That was our bread and butter. I mean, that was great business. Well, these people, a lot of them owned their own jukeboxes, and they put their own music on there. And I actually had a couple of those guys, when the jukebox fad all went away, they said, what am I gonna do with all these? And I said, well, I can help you with that. And so they added to my collection a bit. So to this day, I'm still buying records. I just ordered, I've got 14 CDs coming in now. And what I do is I put them all on my computer, and then I make playlists. And so it was great when cars came out with the USB drives on them, because I put them all on a flash drive. And I don't have to listen to any songs I don't like. I don't have to listen to obnoxious DJs now. And so I have about 4,000 of my favorite songs on one flash drive, and that makes me happy. And I total have, so far I have about 20,000 songs that I have saved on my computer, and about 600 vinyl records, and 1,500 of those little 45s, and about 1,000 CDs. And so that's my big thing. So with that.
Well, 1972, I got married. We just celebrated our 51st anniversary. In 72, I began teaching middle school at Bellevue High School, high school and middle school. I ended up teaching middle school children for 32 years. In 1977, my brother Jim and I started researching our family tree. I was lucky enough to find a death card that said a place in Germany, which turned out it wasn't Germany, but it was France, but anyway. So I wrote a genealogist in Germany to try to get information on our family. And he realized I had the wrong town. He forwarded to a town in France by the same name. When the letter came back, I had 5 generations of my family in that tree. Altogether, my brother and I traced our family back to 1670 in the reign of France. In 1980, I started, after doing research on our family, I realized most of my ancestors, when they came here in 1847, lived in pioneer cabins, and that was the only houses available to them. So I wanted a log cabin. So I started looking around for a cabin, and I found one that was torn down, and I decided to put it in my side yard, next to the cemeteries next to me. So I started building it in the side yard there, and that has blossomed now. I've been working on my museum now for 44 years. I have 2 log cabins, I have a broom maker shop, 7-ton stationary steam engine, I have a blacksmith shop, I have a 4-scale covered bridge, a half-mile nature trail through the woods, 50 pieces of horse-drawn farm equipment, 4 antique tractors, and a partridge in a pear tree. I have everything. It's been an obsession. In 1980, my brother and I decided we were going to do a family reunion. So we decided we were going to put together and have a 12-mile picnic ground. and we advertised it. We had 500 people show up. It was the first reunion anybody could remember. He and I were historians for it. I've had 7 more reunions since then. None of them have ever been 500 people. 1990, on my mother's dining room table, we decided we were going to start a historical society. So we came up with the idea, sitting on Thanksgiving at my mother's and father's dining room table in 1989. In 1990, we had our first meeting. There was like 10 of us there that night. I made a mistake, opened my mouth. I ended up as president, and 27 years later, I was still president. So I decided maybe this dinosaur should retire, so I asked Steve to take my place. 1990, 94, I guess, Judge Executive Ken Paul came to me and wanted to know if we'd be interested in having some space for office in the old courthouse in Alexandria. And I said, I guess, I never thought about it. So he took us out there and showed it to us, and he said, we're going to, if you want to take it, we'll rehab the entire old building, put you in there. So they put in new doors, they painted it, fixed it all up, and we were up there about 4 years and realized we were running out of space. So I had the brainy idea that the office we have up there now, the side of it had a window, and you can see the new building, the next building over, which was the jail. So it had a window too. So I went to the fiscal court with this crazy idea, let's cut a hole in this wall here, and cut a hole in the other wall, and build an elevated walkway and connect the 2 buildings. And believe it or not, they did. They paid for it. So we had to go in there and redo the entire jail. We spent weeks up there, cleaning and painting, fixing up, did all of our own work, paid for it all ourselves. So that's where we've been ever since. Now we're running out of space. We desperately need a new building, or a different building. We have 3,000 square feet, we need 10. We've got so much stuff stored every place else. And in 2001, Jim and I decided to go back to our ancestral town in France. We made arrangements. I had been contacting the mayor of the town, Poutlage, which is about 30 kilometers from Germany, and we were going to go there in, I guess it was late July, and got there and realized they had an election and that mayor wasn't in office anymore. So I had a paper that I had written him in English and French. A friend of mine had translated it for me. So I took it to him, I handed it to him. He looks at, wait a minute, he puts his hand up. He goes in and gets a secretary who took English in high school, and she took us to the town. And the cemetery in that town was, every name in it was a Campbell County name. I'd always heard these people all came to the United States together. By God, they really did. It was just the entire town was people we knew, the last names. And we were welcomed with open arms. U.S. Army rescued that town in World War I and World War II. So we were very welcome in that town. In 2004, I retired after 32 years of teaching, and I went to Cincinnati Museum Center, which is my sweater. I spent 10 years over there in the Children's Museum. I worked with kids at this high, up to this high. I had to tell 500 different stories about working in that situation. I mean, every day was an adventure. Kids were getting lost. Kids were walking out of the museum. One little guy came up to me one day and he was lost. He was going to go upstairs, look for Dad. I said, Dad didn't leave. He's right here someplace. So I said, well, give me a description of Dad. He gave me some stuff. I said, well, I need a better description than that. He says, well, he's tall, he walks fast, and hollers at people. I said, that could be Daddy Dan, the whole building. So I had a great time there. It was probably the best 10 years of my life. I really, really enjoyed working there. Along the way, I became interested in when we redid US 27 in 2013 and 14. They tore down our funeral home. There was a bunch of land left over at the entrance to our community. It looked terrible, and I felt bad for it. So I asked the state government, could I take it over and make a park out? And they said, oh my God, no, we don't let individuals take over state property. So I went to the fiscal court. I said, could you help me get that? They said, no, we can't do that. 3 years I kept up, and finally Missy Williams, the fiscal court, said, let's work something out. So eventually, I signed a paper saying that the land is owned by the state. It was going to be maintained by the Campbell County Fiscal Court, but I was going to do all the work and pay for it myself, which I still do. So I have a park that's 3/4 an acre. It's an interest to our community. In 2017, I was interested in other things there, and we had a grand opening of the park. 2020, with the pandemic was going on, I decided we didn't have a library, nobody could get out and go anyplace, so I built a library for our community at the end of the parking lot of the service station there, got permission from the landowner. I started out with 25 books, I have 150 there now. People go to it all week long, so it's still going. 2022, I realized, I'm starting the book on Keith Branslet. So I realized our community was going to be 225 years old. So I organized a committee. We worked together for a full year. We had it on September 17th of that year. It was a phenomenal day. We had over 1,000 people come out that day. It was a great event. A really good event. I wanted to commemorate today, so I talked to a friend of mine, and I found a picture of the community from 1896 in the hillside on the other side of the road that showed the whole community. So I wanted to use that picture to do something with. So we decided to put a mural on the wall of the store in our community. So we worked for a greater part of 3 weeks. We painted the mural on the wall. It's still there today. And it became a centerpiece of that particular day. And now in 2024, I'm trying to write a book on Bransluck. I've been on this for 4 years now. God knows when I ever finish it. But we are going to get a new grade school at the end of 2025. So my goal is to get the book finished and that albatross off my back so I can say I did it. And we'll have it ready for when the school opens. That's my day.
Thank you to everyone, and a reminder, next month we want to hear about you guys, okay? This was just to kind of give you an idea how, what the kind of things you can talk about. Come and tell us the story. Everybody has an interesting story,